We are live now on Facebook, and I'm going to be posting this show after we're done to Rumble and Odyssey and my website. So it will get a lot of coverage. So welcome, James Grundvig. It's a pleasure to have you on the show. Actually, should have done this a while ago. I think I had you on a long time ago, but I haven't done it.
Long time ago, October 2020, I believe.
Really? Wow.
And I only remember that because I was in a hotel in St. Petersburg on the way to looking at a house property in Sarasota, build a house to move out of New York City because New York City was insane and I knew it would get worse. And sure enough, it got worse.
Oh, and yeah, that was a blessing you did that. So we are, as I say, we are live, and this show is going to be sort of a commentary, batting around some comments and some ideas and some reviews of the hearing, the Congressional Oversight Committee hearing that took place this morning, early California time, and it was, I think it was historic. So we can go down that road, and we can talk about various things there, and I want to get your take. And so why don't you take it away and kind of tell me your quick review, and then we'll take it apart.
Yeah, I listened to language. They had some witnesses in the military come out and explain things. They did find an aircraft. Apparently they found biologics. That's the term they use. When I hear the word biologics with the vaccine world, that's vaccines. That's what Big Pharma uses. So I thought that was very interesting. But then they pressed, they said, well, biologics, human or foreign? They said, no, not humans. So I thought that was very interesting. And apparently they got proof and things of that nature. So this is all part of a disclosure, I think, that's coming out this fall. This is where I think it's leading to.
Right.
But what I found interesting is, for most of our lives, they call this UFOs. Unidentified flying objects, all the way up to 2020. And I just checked on Chat GPT, and it was in 2020 that the Department of Defense intelligence agencies decided to destigmatize the word UFO because there's been so much goofy stuff around it, right? And it's been mocked and all that stuff, and started calling it UAPs, which is the unidentified and anomalous phenomena. So that's interesting.
Okay, well, I have to say that I think there was a more devious method behind that madness, when you've been like I have, deep into the UFO thing for, in over 18 years at this point, UFO is just a term. It just refers to something everyone knows what it is, okay?
Yep.
And there's good and there's bad and there's ugly on that term. But it doesn't mean you need to give us a new term, because when you change the name, people get all discombobulated and they don't know what you're talking about. And as it is now, I can tell you that several newscasters have given the initials UAP all different designations, like that nobody can agree on what it actually stands for.
Aerial, anomalous, whatever. I mean, it's just it's kind of crazy.
Yeah. Unidentified, unacknowledged. I mean, what is the U for? UAP. That's the initials. See, no one can get it right. So that helps. Confusion is always good from the dark side in terms of trying to get the truth on any topic. So they've got their, they've done that. And so, some people, I forget his name, Burkett or whatever his name is, that was on the panel today. He's sticking with UFO. So I think that is fair enough.
But like you said, the dark side. So, the big media to me is part of their dark side, right? It's part of the intelligence agency. So Los Angeles Times headlines today, this afternoon, Congress is getting serious about UFOs, period. Just don't call them that.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely right about it.
Yeah. So this is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with more confusion about something that actually should be pretty straightforward, I think. Now, you can, whether you want to say it's something that you can, bang with a hammer, or whether it can go interdimensional and you can still bring it back and bang it with a hammer. See, they don't actually want to go there, but I'll go there. I'll tell you that these things can materialize and dematerialize. That's actually the nature of this craft. And a lot of the craft are actually considered to be a kind of AI aware entity, whatever you want to call that. So that gets even more confusing. But, these people aren't dealing on that level yet. However, I've been to the disclosure conferences that Stephen Bassett has put on. In fact, I went to the Washington, D.C. one, and I interviewed a ton of people. And Stephen Bassett at that time, and this was, God, I don't even know, maybe 7 years, maybe 10 years ago. And he actually told me to my face that they would not use my witnesses because I have a ton of whistleblowers, right? This is the whistleblower testimony. Even in this case, they had 3 whistleblowers. They were only allowed, it was really bizarre, 5 minutes to state their case. Now, how does anyone state a good case or anything in 5 minutes? But
impossible. I'll give you an example. Do you know who Eric Hecker is?
No.
He's the supposedly the engineer that was in the South Pole Antarctic, and he's a whistleblower on giant HARP. The biggest HARP machine in the world is not in Alaska; it's actually down in the Antarctic, and he's come out about it, and he's up in Alaska now. So I actually talked to him on a Zoom, off camera. Not recorded, not part of a show, for 1 hour. For him to explain to me in 1 hour, not 5 minutes, his example of what he thinks, UFOs are. And it was a fascinating conversation. Some of it is actually off planet. Other parts of it, he believes, is actually, we reverse engineered the technology and we've made certain things possible. And I thought that was interesting. And he said, it's so old, the technology, it goes back to Tom Clancy's first book, The Hunt for Red October, where they're talking about I got the word here. It was very, very interesting. The word is magnetohydrodynamic technology, or a caterpillar drive, a propulsion system so revolutionary. This was back in 1984 movie. The book was obviously, I think, published in 82. So you talk about 40 years ago. So this technology, he's claiming, has been around for a long time. And if you saw the movie Avengers, you saw the aircraft carrier, lift off the ocean and fly in the air. And he believes that some of these, tictac images, they're flying, look like they have intelligence. He believes some of that is actually man-made, but reverse engineered. And he talked about water is a certain medium, air, ether is another medium. It's a different medium, but he believes they can go underwater, in the air, none of it's a problem. So you see these submarine underwater things, but he believes it's one and the same thing. So it's a very interesting conversation I had with about 3 weeks ago.
Excellent. Well, love to talk to that guy if and when he might want to come over and have a discussion. Well, let me say that according to my whistleblowers, and this is, I've been doing this now for 18 years. I've got top whistleblowers, and these people are from the military and from the intelligence agencies. I've got a smattering across the board. And they all say that our secret space program that has reverse engineered and made deals with aliens as well is using technology that's 10,000 years in advance of where we are today. But I would agree with you that it was created, some of this stuff, because, it is coming from alien races, and they've been around from way before we were, before we were even here on the earth. And so we're using that technology. And some of it is definitely reverse engineered. So that doesn't surprise me at all. I wanted to get your take on a couple of things, because first of all, you said the person who was running the proceedings was that Jim Jordan. That's who.
Yeah, so he was Jim Jordan, right? Republican.
Okay, but he seemed to be.
Yeah, go ahead. He's a senator.
Well, okay, whoever it was, he has white hair. He, a little bit heavy set. He was the first speaker, kind of introducing the whole topic and so on. He appeared to be woken up from a deep sleep or something. That's how I act anyway when I'm been sleeping, because he seemed to not know where he was for some of it. He actually stopped partway through his little spiel, which wasn't even that long, but he actually stopped and said nothing for maybe even like definitely 30 seconds, could have been 60 seconds, and then couldn't seem to speak. And then he continued.
So what's the theory in this?
That.
No, well, I didn't see that particular thing, but so what are the possibilities? He's not hungover. Let's start off with that, right?
Okay. He didn't seem drunk.
No. So he's none of that. So what's left? Either he had a really bad night's sleep, or directed energy weapon. This has been around for a long time, and he can get zapped in the head, and he's going to come out there and he's discombobulated, like you said, and he would never know if he got hit by a simple microwave to the brain, right, before he entered the chamber, right, and then he'd come on and would fumble everything.
Yeah, because he seemed like he kind of didn't know where he was. I got the impression that whoever was supposed to be there didn't show, and he was given a script at the last minute to read. Yes. Like that it wasn't even his words. I mean, this is just my impression. I don't actually know the reality.
But it makes sense.
It was strange.
Yeah, go ahead. So I'm on American Media Periscope for your audience. I have a show called Unrestricted Truths. Last week, no problem. Last week I had James Martinez on. Who's he? I've had him on 3 or 4 times in my show. He is a MK Ultra expert. He was a survivor of the entire program.
Right.
He's out in front about free energy, and he's out in front about directed energy weapons, and there's a website called Targeted Justice, which is an appellate court now in Houston, Texas, of actually victims, children and adults being targeted by these microwave weapons, and they believe they got the medical proof of it. So when I heard you talk about this discombobulated congressman or senator, this representative, I immediately thought about, you got to be kidding me, because the worst thing could you imagine this technology, directed energy weapon, being used against a presidential candidate to really screw them up the day of a debate or anything even like that? That would be incredible.
For sure. Well, I'm sure it's being done. I mean, in fact, what do they call it? They actually have another name for it. The something syndrome, Havana syndrome, isn't that
right? And that came out in 2016, so it's been around for 7 years now. And
the CIA, I think even the CIA was documenting it because it was showing up in embassies. There's a very famous case having to do with the Americans and the Russian embassy, and also the Cuban embassy or something like that. That's
right. And then Fox News reported in 2021, and this was part of my show last week, is why I know it off the top of my head. Fox News 2021 reported 3 or 4 new cases in Washington, D.C. It was no longer Havana, Cuba. It was now in Washington, D.C. And that was 2 years ago. So something's going on, and you just have to wonder if it was used 2 years ago, was it used again today? It's just a question I have. We don't know.
Well, there was a very strange pause. I'd like to get other people's feedback that were watching it carefully like I was, because I was, eyes glued to the thing. So I was watching every second. I don't know why. I just had it in my mind. I alerted a lot of people it was going to happen. And it just blew my mind that there was this like break. It was really like a break. He was going along and he was having trouble anyway, but then all of a sudden just blank, just stopped and just couldn't talk for, a good 30 seconds at least, maybe it was longer. Anyway, that was just one time. And then there was, so there's 3 whistleblowers, right? So we've got 2 pilots. They were the ones on the outside, right? So help me with their names, because we've got Grush in the middle. He's the intelligence agent.
You're right. You had Grush. You had Ryan, I think was another one.
Sorry?
Ryan,
was that the name? Because I don't know why I blanked out on one of the names. And then Favor is the other guy. Okay.
Yeah. So
Favor is the TikTok guy.
Yep.
Okay. Now, I hope you're willing to do this, but I want you to give me a psychological evaluation of all three guys. I'm just curious where you're at with them, and I'll do the same, and we'll see. I just like to compare some notes here because, and I think, let me say that I think, they're all very brave, because you got to be brave to come out on this stuff. Okay. I should know. I've been doing this for, this is like a vindication for me. You got to understand, right?
Yes, it actually is.
Yeah. So I want to give kudos to these guys, and it takes a lot of courage to even do this. Even though they were clearly in unison on just about everything. So there was no disagreement, dissenting, anything there, if you watch the whole thing from beginning to end. So that's interesting. And I'm sure they were prepped. Okay. And we even had evidence they were prepped, because back Thursday of last week, we had that big press conference where the individuals of Luna, Getz, however you say his name, Getz, and Burkett. Is his name Burkett?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. So they were.
I got the names of the three witnesses or whistleblowers right there. So let me read this from an article. So Ryan Graves, a former Navy F-18 pilot, right? That's a tictac. David Grush, a former intelligence officer with the Air Force and retired Navy commander. David Fravor, so it's favor with an R, Fravor. Were sworn in on Wednesday, the 26th, right? So they're all three were sworn in. So one's a Navy guy, one's an intelligence guy for the Air Force, and one is a former Navy commander. So they're all actually different, right? The pilot's the one that's very specialty, right? And he's out there, he's an eyewitness to the tictac, right?
That's Fravor. That's Fravor. Agreed?
No, that's Graves, Ryan Graves,
that's
first
Graves?
guy. Yeah, Grush is a former naval intelligence officer and for the Air Force and retired Navy commander. So David Fravor is a retired Navy commander who could be in charge of a ship or aircraft carrier.
All right. So I got their name because, the person who typed on the screen, I don't know if you noticed this, they were getting spellings of words wrong and all kinds of things wrong. So I don't know where they got the person, but they didn't even write UAP right. They didn't even know, what they were writing.
This sounds like a CIA operation. This is how the CIA answers questions by, like you said, sowing confusion. This is what they do.
So their names were not, so I'm just saying that when their names were on the.
So it's almost like it's deliberate dog and pony show in a way. That part of it, right? For the average American who's never listened to you before or even looked at UFOs,
right?
Like, they watch Ancient Aliens, and then they come here and they're a little confused, right? This is meant for them, in my opinion, not for you and I. We could see through this stuff.
Yeah. All right. Fair enough. But I think in spite of that, the information that came out was stellar because it really was on it. And the questions were very, very good from the Congress people. However, again, I want to get back to the psychological evaluation of each guy. So I have a particular reason for asking this. Do you want to give me your take?
I didn't see Fravor, so I can't comment on, but Ryan Graves and David Grush, I can because I had to record a show today, do some research, publish an article. I will say Grush, number one, was extremely well balanced. He was very focused. He was very attentive. He did not try to get out of anything. He was very, very, very calm. And this calm, but not stern is not the right word, but balanced. He knew exactly how to answer the questions. He knew exactly, he would correct somebody if they had, if they were a little wrong in information. So he was really, really good, flat line. And that is like the behavior of a really seasoned, a former intelligence officer. You were trained to be like him. So his personality might be like that, but he's trained to do exactly what he did today. And he did a great job, in my opinion.
All right.
I think Ryan Graves is very interesting. So he's a pilot. So he has a different kind of mindset. He's a completely different skill set than an intelligence officer. And he was very focused. And he made certain points like, I have classified information. I cannot talk about it. Otherwise, I go to jail. And there was, a burst of laughter in the crowd. We don't want you to go to jail kind of thing. So he was also very balanced. And again, you can tell these are military people, those two. There's no question about it. They're trained a certain way, they respond a certain way, they show respect, which I think is very important, right? They didn't treat anybody differently or anything else. So I thought it was very good.
Okay, now I'm putting this on the screen so people can see it. This is, I actually put this on my website and whoops. All right, so this is why I brought this up, because what I noticed, okay, I'm in agreement with you on actually how Grush handled himself. Okay, so he was a center guy. So people are watching and wondering which one I'm talking about. He's the guy in the center. However, there's some very interesting things I noticed about him and I'd love to hear you take of what you think of what I think. And I've already compared it with another person, one of our colleagues, who actually we agree on this. But at any rate, he acted like a man who was extremely concerned about his colleagues who were being threatened and even subjected to violence because of their viewpoints and what they had brought forward to the military in disclosing as whistleblowers or whatever you want to call it. Okay. So they had also disclosed to him.
A real human being. He showed that.
Yes. Like emotionally tied to these people, very much like he was going to defend them at all costs, you know, with his life. In fact, I would even venture to say his physicality when he talked about them, it was unquestionable, like very, very like a leader of men devoted to those men.
Yes.
Okay.
If he walked into a party room, people would notice him. He's got that demeanor about him.
Right. But it was more powerful because I don't know if you saw a couple months ago when he did the news, what it was called, news something.
News Nation, he called it.
Yes, he did an interview. Do you remember the interview?
I saw about 2 minutes of it. I did.
Okay. Well, I watched it, and that was a fascinating interview. That News Nation went into the record. Actually, Luna made sure that it went into the record because it actually appeared that although those people should have done their homework and at least watched that interview, they didn't. Okay. A lot of them had no idea. They didn't understand what was said in the interview. They kept trying to get him to repeat some of the things he said in the interview. He wasn't at liberty. And I actually
he told them to go public domain, go back and watch the interview, right? He said, go back to News Nation, watch my interview. It's there. Yeah.
But what's, interesting about that. Now, I don't know, is he a lawyer also? That's, a lot of these people are lawyers.
I don't know if he's a lawyer or not, but he certainly acted like one.
He acted like one. So, because that's kind of a lawyerly thing where you don't want to climb over and use the wrong words the second time you talk about something, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So, okay. And he's the one who says that he has seen, he hasn't seen the bodies, but there are bodies. He's seen the technology, however. He admitted to seeing the technology. So, so that was very important. Okay. Another thing about him, though, I want to say this is that, I'm used to interviewing whistleblowers. So I have a different way of looking at people than other people do. What I saw was he had extremely high stress level, that he's actually very much afraid of being killed. I'm just going to say that. I mean,
after Obama's chef went floating with the head wound,
the chef
in front of the climate change mansion in Martha's Vineyard, I'd be a little concerned too.
Right. So what I'm saying is that of the three, I think he's the one that's hung out to dry the most. Okay, he's definitely over the edge. He's gone over the edge.
Well, so let's analyze that for a second. We have a pilot. Okay, you got a pilot saw something, and everyone's seen what the pilot saw. We weren't in a seat, but we got to see the videos, right? We have a Navy commander, but we have an intelligence officer. Intelligence is a very spooky, dangerous game. So he plays a completely, as far as his role, not his personality, but his role. It's a different beast. It's not the Navy, right?
Okay, and I think under those circumstances, also maybe because he technically, as a whistleblower, he's come out from under his protections that he might have had while he was still under those titles that he used to hold, right? So he's been out from under that for about 1.5 years or so. And he clearly has been threatened and God knows what's actually happened to him. I know he's been interrogated for hours on end. That you can see,
No question about it. And that will wear down even the best people like him who's used to being interrogated or making the interrogation. I mean, so it eventually wears you down physically.
All right. But he was in top form in spite of the pressure. Okay. So I'm saying I could see the pressure. I could see that he was actually not only afraid for his men's life, but his own. I could see that he was out much further out than the other two guys. Now, I want to talk about the guy who was on, well, when you look at the screen, he's on the right-hand side, but I guess technically maybe that means it's reversed. I don't know, whatever you say. So I thought it was Fravor who was the tic-tac guy. You're saying it's Graves.
It's Graves because the pilot's a tic-tac guy.
Okay, so I want to talk about the TikTok guy because he has another situation going on.
Go ahead.
Okay. First of all, he is afraid. Now, he's not afraid for his life. He actually feels he was actually kind of like flagrant. He was dismissive
of national security. Right? There's an actual physical threat out there.
He hadn't been threatened, that he could say anything he wanted. He was protected under his, his oath and all of that because he was still within the system. Okay.
Yep.
But surprisingly, he's actually a nervous wreck and he couldn't quite hold himself together. That's my opinion. As the day wore on or the hour wore on, hard to believe it was only an hour. What I saw is he was, kind of a little shaky on the foundations. All right. And I'm not, he's a good guy, but he is also somebody who does not question authority. Whereas Grush has had to question authority severely in this disclosure.
And going back to a pilot, you're not in being a pilot, you're more stealthy, right? You're not in this spotlight like Graves was today. So that was a new setting for him, and that could explain also some of his nervousness.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. He's also a kind of by the book guy. That's what you get across with him. He doesn't color outside the lines much. That's my impression. He said his friends, his fellow pilots, insisted he come forward. So he's not a. He's not a radical. He's not a rabble rouser. He's just a by the book kind of guy. But kudos to him to have the courage to stand up for his men and for the subject matter when he's probably the last person in the row that would ever do so. Right?
Yeah.
Just my take. Okay. So, and then the other guy you're saying is Fravor. Yeah. Some reason I got their names mixed up. But anyway. He was actually very, very good, very sort of not as emotionally engaged in the situation for some reason. Did you get that at all?
Yeah, no, he's older than Graves, right? I mean, that's part of it. So he's more seasoned. He's got more years of experience. He's got white hair compared to Graves being balding and Graves shaved off the rest of it compared to Grush. So he's the oldest of the three. So he's got the most experience. And when you get older, and I'll just my own experience, when you hit a certain age, things calm down for you. So even, when you're 20, you get really excited, you get less excited in 30 and 40, right? Whatever. But when you get to a certain age, like past 55 and 60, whatever, things actually slow down for you, right? You don't get, no one's going to blow smoke up the commander's rear end. He's retired. He's seen everything. He's experienced everything. So he's got a completely different temperament than the other two, just based on that.
All right. I'm going to see if I can, I'm skipping along here a little bit because I want to see if I can get all three guys on the screen. Whoops, I had it. Okay. I do want to give some of these Congress people credit because and do you know do you happen to know the very last guy?
Right now, there's not a lot.
Hold on a second. I know. Let me share my screen.
I don't know if I even watched the last part of it. That's
you did.
My schedule's a little upside down today. So different things were going on.
Tell me about it. Okay, so, okay, this is the guy who lost his place and was introducing everything, just so we get the players here.
All right, so that is not Jim Jordan, right? It's somebody
Okay.
else.
Oh, it is. All right. So I don't know who that is. So let's not give the
Yeah.
wrong person. That's Luna.
Yeah.
This is Garcia. He was actually quite kind of on it and really not letting anything.
Yeah.
These guys were really on it, I have to say. They were paying great attention.
No, it was interesting for them.
Yeah. And some of
Gates.
them actually went on the line. Okay. Sorry about this. I'm trying to get these guys on the screen all together. Interesting. I'm not being able to do that. All right. Well, I can't do it. I wanted to get all three witnesses on the screen.
Would that be the beginning where they have to be sworn in to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? But they, that's true. It would be a shot like that, but I don't know.
One shot, because I'm looking at stripes.com, and they have one shot of them like holding up their hands, swearing on the Bible kind of.
Oh, do
thing,
they?
so,
Okay.
yeah.
Are you able
So
to
if you go
bring
to
that picture on the screen?
Let me see if I can.
Having trouble getting these three guys because I wanted to get all three of them. So we.
Oh, otherwise, I'd recommend just going to stripes.com on your side, and
All right.
I'm sure it's a top story.
Okay, let me
Literally.
stop it right here. This guy, now I'm not sure you know this. This is the tic-tac guy.
Yep.
Okay.
Mhm.
He's lost hair and he's got whitish hair. So he's not yet. He's not the young guy.
Wait, hold it. You got the thing in the way. It looks like Fravor, Commander Fravor. That's Fravor you're looking at.
Okay, but he is the tic-tac guy.
Oh, so then he is okay.
Yeah. So I think
he was so it's weird because the TikTok guy is a pilot though. So that's
he's
what's
a
strange.
pilot. This guy is a pilot, straight up a
He's
pilot.
a pilot too. So you got two pilots, but you got one pilot with a lot
Pilots,
more
yeah.
experience than the other
Okay,
one.
I think
All
I
right.
got. Okay, I wanted to ask you about this guy. Can you see this guy right here?
Yeah, I see him. I didn't watch him today, but go on.
Oh, too
Mr.
bad.
Ogles. Go ahead. What about Mr. Ogles?
Okay, he's a very interesting character because he was very at the end and he works in national security. Sorry, I missed his exact title, so we can look into it. He came out with some very strong statements and basically summed up the entire proceedings and said that these things are, because I don't know if you know, they went from person to each of the witnesses. They wanted a yes, no answer. And somebody else was asking the questions and they were being asked, in essence, is the tic-tac or any of these UAPs, could they be a threat to national security? The answer was very possibly, okay, or yes. So the answer was a yes. The guy I showed you, that older guy that came on last, basically said, these are a threat to national security. We don't know what they are. We don't know where they come from. And there was a total agreement on the fact that they didn't come from here, that they had technology that whether they're right or wrong doesn't really matter.
No, it doesn't matter.
But the three witnesses' conclusions they had come to was that the technology was way above and beyond anything we have here on Earth or anyone has here on Earth. That's what they came forward. Now, they could be wrong. Okay.
No, they could be wrong, but Eric Hector has a different, when I talked to him, had a different point of view, saying, maybe it didn't come from outer space. It came from under the sea. The technology came from off planet, right? But maybe this is reverse engineered. Maybe this is a submarine. Maybe this popped up and it's in a different medium and this technology is so far advanced. And that's where he dropped that Tom Clancy had actually, through the intelligence, Tom Clancy obviously knew about this technology. Otherwise, he wouldn't have written it into his book about a fictional propulsion system that didn't exist, but actually likely does exist now. And we're just learning about it. It was a fascinating conversation I had.
Okay. So I can tell you this. I have a whistleblower, a longtime whistleblower of mine, who during the tic-tac thing, basically, now I know that he's like an intelligence agent and he will lie to me when he's told to lie to me. So I'm not going to say that what he told me was right or true.
Right.
But he called me up to tell me that the tic-tacs were ours. And this
Yeah.
is several years ago. That's
Well,
what
that would actually line up with Eric Hecker. That would absolutely line up with it,
I know.
right? But it's a black project, so the Navy are not going to know about
Right.
a black project like that.
And this
period.
guy that called me up has been to Antarctica, just saying, to meetings and such.
Yeah, well, this
Got
I'm
above
starting
top
to
secret.
believe your whistleblower and Eric Hecker in this respect. It makes more sense. This particular UAP or UFO.
Well, I'll tell
that-
you why it
That makes a lot. Go ahead.
I'm going to give you my thinking on this, which is I think would be standard thinking in an intelligence agency, okay, is that you have this is the cleaned up, perfectly whitewashed story that they're using to symbolize UFOs. Now, you and I know there's zillions of UFO sightings, zillions of film of sightings, even zillions of photographed, filmed, etc. We have it all. And I've seen a great deal of this stuff. Okay. So these tic-tacs are like, if you wanted to bring up something that's like, in my opinion, one of the worst demonstrations of a real UFO. Okay. The least often one you would ever see, looking like, what do they call it? A canister,
Yeah. It's oval shape and it looks like a
But it's
tic
not
tac, which
your
is that white little.
standard. It's
Yeah,
not
no,
your
it's-
standard run of the mill. So
No,
what
not
I'm
at all.
saying, this is a whitewashed story. Tic Tac
Yep.
was always a whitewashed story. And that lends itself to the idea that they own it. You know, you have to own the narrative when you're going to be willing.
They
to release
definitely
it.
own that. That is not a foreign entity. It's foreign technology. It's alien technology.
Sure,
but-
whatever they use inside.
But you know, we the United States owns it.
Yeah, because they're demonstrating it over and over and over again in our faces and nothing else. We don't get to see anything else. Okay.
Well, this is how they
This is
control
insane.
opposition. This is how they control narratives,
Yeah.
right? They give you this big little present, like, oh, look at this, but nothing else. And you're right. And it's from a distance and it's infrared. It's not a perfect image and it's
No, it's not
all
great.
a little strange to look at and whatever.
And it's very non-threatening looking if you think about it. I mean, because there's reference by Grush and this other guy named Herrera who came out on the UK Daily Mail, and his
Yep.
whole story was on there, but I don't think it's been in an American newspaper, tell you the truth. And he
No.
was supposed to do an interview with me, by the way, and he has canceled so far. He says he got very busy. He got a big order all of a sudden. Well, of course he got a big order all of a sudden.
He's
I don't
famous
think he's
now.
lying about that. I think they just made him really busy, something he could make a lot of money. He works in aerospace.
Yep.
I don't know if you know that. Anyway, Herrera he's one of the witnesses that came forward about a month or two ago when Grush first came out. So he is talking about a football field size craft. And Grush also mentioned that in this hearing.
So
Okay.
think about the Avengers movie. I know it's Hollywood, but in the world of predictive programming, they got that aircraft carrier. And I know an aircraft carrier is bigger than a football field. It's 3 football fields. But the point is we're getting this stuff, planted into our minds of the possibilities, even though it's a Marvel Comics thing. It is, they're showing us
Oh,
something.
no, they'll do that all the time. They disclose a ton of stuff.
Absolutely.
In Hollywood. I mean, actually, you have to thank them for that. I mean, it's a
I agree.
double-edged sword. Okay. But it's definitely okay. What I say now is that disclosure is not shocking to the youth. Okay. They grew up with it. They've seen it in movies forever. They are not going to be surprised or shocked. Okay.
Correct.
It's the older people that can't handle it. Okay. And even that might be like a middle. So the older people who grew up during the 50s, they actually were exposed to more stuff back in the 50s than we are now. Okay. I think you know that, right? So it's the middle ground. I don't know what you call those people, the baby boomers or whoever they are.
Oh, the late boomers and the early,
Those are the ones
Generation X, whatever it is.
held on to their fantasy about what life is really about. And they don't want to include UFOs and aliens from other planets. And they've got their religious basics and the whole thing. So, okay. It's interesting. So what we have here is also something where Congress, like I want to say the last guy, he basically said, These are a threat to national security because we don't know what they are. All three testimonies said that we didn't have the technology, that it was out of this world, that we couldn't defend ourselves even if we wanted to, which makes them a national security threat. So that was the conclusion of the whole meeting, as far as I'm concerned. What that last guy, I'm sorry, I don't have his name right here. I put his picture, I put his face on the screen here. But he basically said, we're going to go out and make some changes now. So this meeting is not going to just dissolve and slip under the rug, I would say, unlike all the other disclosure type meetings that we've had over the years. Any thoughts on that?
I think it's what are they gonna disclose? Are they gonna disclose with some omissions? Because like you said, you got a cleaned up TikTok, and here's a UAP or UFO. Here it is. Are we gonna get the full picture? Because if we're actually in the book of Revelation and in the apocalypse and in the great unveiling, where truth will be revealed, are we actually gonna get full disclosure? Not part disclosure, not half disclosure.
Well, that's actually not what I'm talking about, but a threat to national security is a huge step. And this is where you get into Project Bluebeam, okay? Because that's the next I want to go to ask you about.
So the threat to national security is, if the tic-tac technology is a breakaway part of the United States government or a Fourth Reich, Nazi thing in Antarctica, it's a threat to national security. But if it's part of our government and the peaceful people, I don't see it as a threat.
But that's not what that's you and I, that we've just talked about that off the record, so to speak, in a way. They didn't talk about that in the meeting today. What they said, and what especially the guy I just showed you that I think he's the tic-tac pilot. We, may be disagreeing on which one that is, but he said it had no rivets, it had no seams, and that it was technology. He said it several times during the day. Okay. He said, this is technology and science that we don't have. And even said he thought it was hundreds, if not tens of thousands of years ahead of what we have.
So
he thinks that technology is off planet. Okay. That was clear. And this is the guy who, like I told you, he was the one who was more straight-laced, who didn't want to go outside the boundaries, but he's willing to say that much.
I'm with him. The technology clearly doesn't exist in this world, in the world that you and I know, right? In the world that we grew up in, it doesn't exist. It's definitely off-planet technology.
So what I would say is we've got Grush saying their bodies. We've got a football-sized description in that meeting was a football-sized craft. We never saw a picture of it, right?
Well, we didn't.
So there's just references to it. The only picture we're ever allowed to see is that little non-threatening, what I would say, it looks like a vitamin pill, if you ask me, tic-tac thing, right? So these things matter. These are what we call memes. These are things where you don't have to use words to convey a certain idea to the public. You show them a picture often enough, it's a kind of mind control, right?
That is kind of mind control.
Okay. And you change the name from UFO to UAP at the same time. And that's also mind control.
No question about
advertising, right? The advertising 101. Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Put the same thing out, change the name, make more sales, whatever. Okay. I don't want to keep this going for too long. You've been very gracious. But I do want to get your, overall take and anything you think we left off here.
I just think Project Bluebeam. I just think that if we're going to have the alien invasion, which we've been promised, we're promised this polycrisis this year. Well, what's the event that was supposedly unite the world, everyone believe in the World Economic Forum and United Nations to protect us from the aliens, right? With all countries come together in a one world government, one world religion, and we're all going to be saved.
We all have to have a common enemy, like Reagan said.
Yeah, and so, but Project Bluebeam is I see it every day on Twitter. It's just on my Twitter feed. people are just mocking it left and right. When's the
That's
alien
right.
invasion coming?
Well,
And
but-
so they don't have the,
do.
because the pandemic was such a failure in 2020, right? The phantom
Fair
virus, whatever.
It was
It
a failure in some ways and a success, a ridiculous success in others, which
but
rolling out.
the biggest failure is they lost first mover advantage or believability. No
Right.
one's going to believe them anymore.
No, and
No
that's
matter what,
a blessing.
every false flag gets right. The chef in Obama, we might have believed that 30 years ago. It was just with the newspapers, right? But now in 24 hours, you got a crowdsource of millions of people just saying, oh, he had a blunt force object. Oh, they found a picture of him as like Olympic swimmer in a pool. I mean, he's 43 years old. So like obviously he didn't drown. So the crowdsource is a problem they got now. I'm talking about the dark side, is they can't fool us like they used to.
Right.
They've lost all advantage, lost all leverage there.
Okay, but
and
let me
believability.
tell you what's something good, which is to me, because I'm all about getting disclosure out. So this hearing was positive, okay, on the surface. But what it does is bring people around to the idea that we could be being threatened and invaded. They have to put that in their minds. It's not laughable anymore. Okay. UFOs are no longer a giggle factor as of,
Correct.
I would say right now. Okay. They are a threat to national security that sets the stage for Blue Beam the way it needs to be.
Yeah. So it does. But Blue Beam's going to have to be so really spectacular that we're going to have to believe it.
I know. And I think they've got problems. I mean, I think they're going to have a big problem with the narrative, but it's worth noting. And so I want to thank you for coming on my show. This has been fun.
Yeah, Kerry, thank you.
Let's do it again. Let's not let such a massive amount of time go by. I'd love to have you back. And we'll shoot the shit and we'll analyze again together, because I can see you like to analyze like I do. So that's cool.
I love analyzing it. It's the only way we're going to get through this.
All right. Very good. James Grundvig, thank you very much. Everyone watch AMP. Josh Reed is also over there, and Juan O'Savin is quite a constant visitor as well.
He
All
is.
right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.